Vanakkam, Namaste, and blessings to everyone. This is Dr. Bhairavi Balasubramanian, PhD, the Sky Priestess. All right, so let's talk about this upcoming lunar eclipse in Capricorn. So it's going to be taking place exactly on the 16th of July at 9:38 in the evening, Universal Time. So adjust accordingly to figure out where that is in your own time zone. Basically, this lunar eclipse in Capricorn, well, to be honest, there's not enough words to describe it because of the sheer magnitude of what it is bringing to all of us. And, of course, it's connected to eclipses in 18-year cycles as part of the Saros series. Of course, it has, or it is related to the seeds that we set during the new moon in Capricorn in January earlier this year. And, of course, this eclipse is going to have ripple effects that affect all of us and the superstructure and the planet that we habit in, ways that we can't even imagine. So really, it's very, very immense. And in some sense, we've already laid a lot of the groundwork. We've already taken our stances. We've already learned the tools that we're going to be using to face whatever it is that's going to come up. As I talked about in my monthly overview for July, which you can be a part of if you choose to subscribe to the Tier 23 program, really, by the time we enter July, we already see that our stances have been set, our tools have been found, and really the dominoes have already been pushed into motion. So all we can really do at this point is to watch things unfold. Now, I want to be very careful in saying this because some people may interpret this to mean that at this point there's nothing left to do, we hide under a rock, there's no more scope for agency. That's not what I mean by observe and allow things to unfold. It's a case of, we've already had our ducks in a row and the ducks are doing whatever it is they need to do in their next step. But for us to fully be able to respond to these challenges, we need to use all of those tools that we've been working with. We need to use all of the discernment and inner observation and practices of stillness that we have really spent a lot of time honing and harnessing over the past few years, because this is it. This is the indicator of many things to come. And we've had a couple of flagship moments that have felt this way over the past couple of years, and we will have more moments in the future that kind of feel that way with this level of intensity. But it's really one of those very significant turning points for all of us, individually and collectively speaking. And in some sense, this is a revelation of decisions that we didn't really want to face, or ramifications of things that we weren't fully aware of. So really, it's all just coming to the surface. And what we do right now isn't to say that, I don't like this, I want to change everything. This isn't exactly the time to, try to tackle this energy head on. This isn't the time to try and look at this wave and swim straight into it. That achieves nothing. This is a time to look at things, allow them to unfold a little bit so that you know exactly what you're facing before using another opportune astrological moment in time for you to actually take a stand or fortify yourself or use whatever information you need, or spiritual tools of awareness, attunement, alignment, finding that cosmic flow, whatever word you want to use. It just isn't the time to be looking at this in an adversarial sense, because there is no point to it. This is such a large wave of energy that the best we can do is to allow ourselves to respond to it, not to react, not to come up with knee-jerk reactions that will make us do things that we're going to regret, but to respond to it, to say, I recognize you, I witness you, I see the magnitude of the information that you are bringing, I give thanks for the information that you have given me, and this is how I choose to reorient myself in response to it. So, that's a very conscious way of saying it, but this can happen, or rather this is a very verbal way of saying it, but this can happen in a purely non-verbal way as well, depending on how you choose to work with your emotions and the way they attune to these cosmic mega waves of energy. And the reason why this particular eclipse, I would say, is a lot stronger than anything we've seen in recent times is because of the players involved. So let's look at the astrology of why this eclipse is as powerful as everyone is saying it to be. Well, we have the sun at 24 degrees Cancer. It opposes the moon at 24 degrees Capricorn, which is standard for a Capricorn full moon. We have that every year. But what's already pretty intense is that Pluto is at 21 degrees Capricorn, meaning it's within 3 degrees of the full moon. That already brings a lot of old patterns to the fore, whether it's from your ancestry, whether it's from the shamanic otherworld, whether it's from your own psyche, whether it has something to do with sexuality, intimacy, health, finances, anything that needs something to be dragged out into the open so that you can face it with your authenticity. This is what Pluto does. So Pluto meets the moon in Capricorn, and Capricorn's concerns itself have more to do with structure, stability, power, what it is you anchor, the decisions that you make for a long time to come. And my cat meows in the background in resonance. But basically, you're being asked to look at what you understand is powerful, what you understand is your legacy, what you understand is your mission, your purpose, your worth, and the worth of the world that has given you that sense of worth to begin with. And you're being asked to scrutinize it. You're being asked to look at whether all of your beliefs about what makes you powerful or what makes anything powerful is true. Is it standing on the feet of clay? Is this edifice of power built on the backs of someone or something else? Is your financial strength being, fortified and generated by cutting somebody else short? All those kinds of questions can come. And it affects people differently because Capricorn's going to be in different houses for everyone. We don't all have the same chart. And at a collective level, we're going to be seeing this really in terms of, it can happen in one of many ways. People can use Pluto to do magical acts of healing and transmutation. You look into the shadow, you see the gold that comes through the work of healing. Some people are going to use Pluto to harm other people. You may be seeing people, or in fact governments, that are using their brute force and strength to silence others. Some people may be very, very focused on themes of psychology, sexuality. We may be seeing these themes coming up very strongly with institutions and figures in power in the public eye. So there are all kinds of ways that this can come up, personally and collectively. We can see it in themes in the workplace, perhaps scandals that have to do with financial issues or issues to do with the sexualization of labor or whatever it is. There's so many ways this can come up. And of course, there are very positive things that have come up as well. For me, at the very least, I'm celebrating the fact that the next James Bond is going to be a black woman. But that's just me. Some people may see that in a very, very different way. So really, the figures of what we consider to hold and anchor power, the institutions behind them, and remember, an institution is not necessarily a building or a corporation, it's an established practice. This is what's going to be transformed in the best case scenario. And in the worst case scenario, those who hold the status quo may be trying to stamp on the heads and squelch those who seek to topple them or even challenge them or even ask them for any form of redistribution. That's just the sun, Pluto, and the moon together. Not looking at the fact that this is an eclipse. And as I see it, eclipses are portals of time magic. They actually help us look into the past, they help us look into the future in ways that other astrological alignments do not do as well. And they string us through these moments of time and space in ways that we don't fully understand. But that's just eclipse magic. But on top of all of this, we see that the sun, the moon, and Pluto aspect Haumea at 24 degrees Libra. Haumea is basically a figure from Hawaiian mythology. She is very much a creatrix. Pele, the goddess of volcanoes, is her daughter. She births different gods and goddesses from different parts of her body. So that's not a terrible alignment, but that can also mean that all of these literal upheavals and transformations may literally be making us give birth to new terrains, internally and externally. Again, not a bad thing, but it can spell for very physical types of upheavals, especially in places which are geologically unstable. And we've already seen that. It was quite interesting that during the Sun-Pluto opposition, I was at a beach in Malaysia and had this vision of just the water rising all around me really, really, really quickly. And even though I wanted to swim, I just got out real fast. And then I went and just checked the time, and several hundred kilometers away in Indonesia, huge earthquake had just hit. And I don't know how, why, it's just the way of the universe. I was just happened to be in the water at the time going, something is going to go down right now. I don't know what it is. I only found out what it was later. So we're actually going to be seeing the activation of, geologically powerful zones. And we've already seen that building up in California. So those of you who are in those hotspots, make sure you've got the basics covered. At this point, at this stage, if anyone thinks that this is someone predicting doom and gloom and disaster, you haven't looked at the news. Because this is what's happening all over the planet in different ways. At this point, panic is a luxury. You've got to just stick with the basics, make sure you are in a place of safety, your loved ones are in a place of safety, help other people if possible, and make sure you've got your supplies with you or tools that you need to go to safe spaces if that does occur. So those are some tips that we do see coming up, especially with Haumea in the mix. So Sun, Pluto, Moon, Haumea. The fourth player is, of course, Eris herself at 24 degrees Aries. And Eris is the feminine who got excluded. Because she got excluded from a wedding party, she literally sets into motion a chain of events that leads to the Trojan War. We're seeing thousands of people dead because one woman did not get invited to a wedding party. So whilst I respect the fact that Eris has very much to do with the exclusion of the feminine, I also see that in the myth of Eris, also known as the goddess of discord, we see that there tends to be a degree of overkill or a sense of a response that seems to be getting blown out of proportion. Maybe from a historical sense, those scales are absolutely just, but from an immediate sense, a more short time frame or more short perspective of looking at things on a human time scale, for instance, maybe the kinds of outbursts and eruptions we're going to be seeing with Eris thrown in the mix may not, at first glance, seem like they are warranted. Either way, Eris being thrown into the mix can very, very, very much point to individuals, corporations, governments, and I bring in governments and so on here because it is a Capricorn full moon, being triggered in ways that make them escalate things beyond what is actually needed to find resolution. Just because you feel triggered, just because you feel like you're not being respected, just because you feel like you're being excluded, and I'm not saying any of those are, things to just overlook, but just because those things are happening, be sure that you are not being baited or gaslit into an extreme reaction that maybe in retrospect you don't really want to be doing or having at that time. Before you react to whatever it is that's triggering you during this eclipse, ask yourself, what narrative are you being pushed into? What are you being asked to burn down? And is the collateral actually worth it? Does the scale of damage that you are able to create actually match the level of perceived injustice? And if you feel the answer is yes, go for it. But the fact that you can actually stop and ask that question before getting triggered into doing something like that means that you're more likely to actually have a response that is more truly aligned with the self. Now, there's a lot of unstable people that are in power right now. And honestly, I would say, look at what, the leaders of more powerful nations or so-called powerful nations, what are they doing? Just measuring economic strength, military strength? But, in those sense, look at what leaders of such nations are doing and saying, and what is their rhetoric? What is their rhetoric? What are the decisions that they are moving towards? And pay attention. Now, basically, this isn't the time to be burying your head in the sand, nor is it a time to be ignoring what's going on in the world. We have got to be aware so that we can respond accordingly. But at an individual level, I would simply say, be open to the energy that's coming, look at yourself, look at the responses you are giving to the world, and whether or not they come from a place of alignment. There is true breakthrough, transformation, and rebirth that is indeed possible with this energy. But it still needs to come from a place that is aligned with the principles of love and compassion. You can either completely burn the world down and break it to remake it, or you can do so slowly, a little more incrementally, a little more gradually. It all depends on which path of creation you want to. destructive creation that you want to take. Do you want to burn everything down like a forest fire and let new life come again? Great. In which case, goodbye humanity. Or do you want to do things in a way where there's a little bit more push and pull, there's a little bit more give and take, there's a little bit more room for diplomacy and helping everyone acknowledge where we're at, to find a common consensus to help us recreate the world in a way that honors everyone and everything. This is a lesson that's happening at the macro level just as it is happening at the micro level. And whilst all of this is going on, it would be very remiss of me not to mention the fact that Venus, dear Venus, embodiment of the feminine, would be conjuncting the North Node and opposing the South Node and Saturn in Capricorn. So what we are witnessing, should we allow it to happen, is a release and a gradual breakdown. Even if it may seem very, very strong at this time, it is a part of the movement to a gradual breakdown and dissolution of the old ways of holding power, structure, and order. And this is in some sense the birthing pangs of creating a world and a vision that is much more aligned with our emotional sensitivities, with the understanding of the creative feminine, the energy and archetype of the feminine that connects all of us, be it man, woman, child, person of a different gender, person who chooses not to identify with gender, cat, dog, tree, everything. Everything has that feminine archetype running through it. It is not limited to a set of sex organs or lack thereof. The energy and archetype of the feminine is weaving itself into the world in ways that defy our ability to conceptualize or logically understand just what it is and what it is not, because that is what the feminine is. There is no label to what she is. What we do is to simply witness and allow her magic to weave itself into the world. In some cases, the best thing that we can actually do is to hold the space and get out of her way. And that may be, in some cases, one of the best approaches to some of the situations that you may be facing at this time. Remember that no matter what is going on, you are still on this planet. I've tried to avoid very cataclysmic proclamations with this energy, and like myself, I'm sure many other astrologers saw this coming years ago. Truth be told, this is the time that all of us have been talking about, and this is the time where we are being asked to really practice what we preach. If the answer is love, then make way for love to arrive. Don't put your own conditions on what that needs to look like. Feel your way through whatever it is that is being presented to you, no matter how dense, how heavy it is. And know that there is a guiding hand. There is that hand of grace that still supports this planet and all of us on it. Us being everything that's here, not just humans. So whilst there is this very, very strong hand of the feminine at play, and there are seemingly very destructive forces, some of which are masculine, some of which are other aspects of the feminine at play at the same time, I would actually say that this eclipse is a life-affirming one, but it will take our combined faith and our combined conviction and our combined willingness to act, or be willing to be still until we receive the guidance to act, that will make this possible. Do not lose your heads. That is not going to help anybody. And if you are feeling very traumatized, very triggered, find a safe space for you to be. Take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, you damn well cannot help anybody else. If you do seek help from another, make sure that it doesn't come with strings attached. Honor your facilitators, honor their time and energy in the ways that work for them. And, in a respectful way, get the job done. Some of you may need extra healing at this time. Some of you may need extra guidance at this time. Just remember, if you're not feeling it in your heart, it ain't worth doing. Long story short, that's what I have to say for this eclipse. Take care. Very many blessings to all of you. And remember, we're still here. There is a reason for this. And this is what we can take some comfort in. Much love, many blessings. Cha-cha for now. Bye-bye.